Farlost. Created by John Miro. 23.
Cellar One's got a head count, Rose Okoro called, her voice tense. Oh, Moya. 3 critical injuries, no deaths. Lou sagged against the command chair's straps, momentarily weak with relief. Over 50 lives confirmed safe. It was more than she hoped. Yes, that's amazing! Lou looked over at Stan Rennick, Beecham's kid assistant. His face shone, and she saw genuine relief on his face. Since he'd come out of his heavy slumber, he'd been rushing around the command and control module, offering to help however he could. Yeah, she thought, watching the kid jump back to Beecham's station with energy and spirit. A good heart. Beecham began to yell, and Lou watched the kid. Stan's face didn't fall. He kept on beaming as he coasted closer to his boss. He spoke quiet words, asking questions that guided Beecham to refocus his anger and attention back into whatever data on the screen caused the outburst in the first place. A good heart, and he knows how to keep their resident genius and asshat on the rails? Worth his weight in gold, Lou thought with a smirk, before turning her focus back to her own screens. She watched blue dots float through a wireframe version of HHL-6. Dina Rodriguez's team, already through the final airlock back to the maintenance craft hangar. Her chin raised and fell once, a curt nod of appreciation that the pilot was moving fast. Both Taggart and Lou's first officer were convinced Beecham's lightshow had to keep running. So was she admitted to herself, but she was glad to have external verification. Something bad was still out there. She believed it. Enough not to lose her nerve when she eyeballed the timer counting down the remaining energy in the emergency life support fuel cells. 27 minutes. 27 minutes before the nearly silent sigh of the scrubber motors disappeared, and the ventilation fans wound down. 27 minutes until the air stopped circulating. 28 minutes until every breath the crew took sent toxins into the air and formed pockets of CO2 in every room on 6. She called up an external monitor, saw the blackness that was the inside of the force field Beecham had formed around HHL-6, and wondered again what lay beyond it. Commander, Cellar 1 amends report. 3 crew members unaccounted for. Lou closed her eyes. Acknowledged. What did you think, Lulu? She berated herself. Nobody could go through all this and lose no one. It still hurt. It still burned. She was operating blind to the world around her, running on fumes, and terrified she would miss something, and that number would climb. What was it Dwyer used to say? It was supposed to hurt. She remembered his kind, sad smile, remembered that he'd lost people too. She was all HHL-6 had. She would have to be enough. She hit the monitor far harder than necessary to activate a channel for her first officer and Taggart en route to Cellar 2. The wire frame had them halfway down the spine of the ship. How goes it, First? His voice returned thin amidst a cavernous echo. His helmet was off. A good sign. Taking samples as we go. So far, automated systems have done a great job of sealing the tanks and corridors open to vacuum, and they've repressurized at least 1 corridor and airlock assembly into every tank we've been through, but it wasn't exactly stingy with the foam. We'll have to cut our way through a buildup that sealed the airlock here. How are Rodriguez and her crew making out? Lou's eyes flitted to another cutout diagram showing the dots of color representing the 3 pilots. As she watched, one blipped out, then another. She knew what the sensor cutout meant. They're boarding the EVA craft now. As she spoke, red highlighted text on her screen announced the vehicle bay doors opening. The pilot's voice floated from the ceiling on their shared emergency channel. The toad is hopping, Commander. We've got several 100 meters of coiled power cabling bolted to her side and have begun visual inspection of the damage. Shit, it's dark out here. Ma'am, Lou snorted. I'm patching you through to the nav officer, Rodriguez. Work fast and good luck. She slapped icons on the screen to transfer the toad's signal to a private channel, then threw the line to Rose Okoro's terminal. Commander Montaigne? Vice President Burkov floated toward Lou's station, hands awkwardly splayed to grab hold of something. He got one hand around a handlebar mounted to the back of one of her monitors and glared at her. You've ignored my orders. You have no idea where we are. You insist on wasting our air to keep Beecham's machines working based on what seems like a shared hysteria. You haven't even updated the automated SOS. I demand to know your plans now, or I'll have you relieved." Burkov's voice was loud, his face stern. It was all posturing. Lou resisted a laugh. She wasn't about to hand the ship over to him, but assuming they survived whatever the universe had left to throw at them, she'd still like to have a job, even if the prick had tried to electrocute her. "Sir, I understand this has all been overwhelming. What happened between us before? Well, I'd like to forget about that. Right now, though, the ship is unable to send any signals until the light show is disabled." "Then drop the goddamn light show!" Burkov roared. She saw through the cracking poker face to the terror in his eyes. She tried being calm and reasoned with him one more time. "Mr. Vice President, my first priority is to find out if the reactors are still online." "They are," Beecham snapped. "I said so, didn't I?" Lou ignored the interruption. "And if the reactors are online, the EVA crew led by Pilot Rodriguez will expedite repairs. Until then, we inspect the damage to the ship and, well, sir, we wait." "Turn off his fucking machines and send a signal, you bitch!" Spittle landed on Lou's face. Everyone turned to watch. Lou watched him with a steely gaze until he looked away. Then she pulled up Six's access control list and removed every permission attached to Burkov's account before looking up again. "Sir, your behavior constitutes a clear and present danger to the safety of this vessel and her crew. Until this emergency has passed, you may consider yourself a passenger or a prisoner. The choice is up to you." She waited a beat. He remained frozen, immobile. She sighed. She didn't have any more time to attend on him. "If you choose guest, Mr. Vice President, take your seat and stay in it." She waved a hand back toward the duty officer's cabin. "If you choose prisoner, you can get back in there." Burkov's face had gone volcano red. "You stupid fucking—" She leaned forward, pressing her face inches away from his. "You can fire me later, you piece of shit, but right now you're going to take a seat. And if you waste one more second of my time, I'll throw you in there and weld the door shut myself." He only lasted a few seconds before his face fell, and he pulled himself back, now looking hollow, insubstantial. "Nobody knows where we are," he whispered. "Please, you have to tell them," he said, his voice cracking. He heard his weakness as clearly as she did, and his face became ugly with loathing. For her. For what she'd revealed about him, cowing him in front of the others. He didn't have it in him to pose a threat now. That was written all over his face, but Lou could tell she'd made an enemy. "I'll transmit everything we have the moment I know I can lower that field." Lou ground out, a little more of her own anger and frustration seeping out than she meant to. She pointed at his chair. He went. He was right. They were operating on baseless, primal instinct, keeping the shields up. How the hell would she know when it was safe? Of course, stupid, 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 Beecham screamed. Lou looked at the scientist's back, hunched close to his screens. "Care to share with the class, Doctor?" He waved a hand and grumbled inarticulately, lost in code scrolling across his screens. Lou shifted her attention. "Would you translate, Mr. Rennick?" Stan looked back, looking like a stoner at the top of his high. He grinned back at her. He's pulling a trick out of the special relativity toolbox. Real old-school stuff. See, light is both a particle and a wave, so... Beecham brayed loud and hard. He spun in his restraints and poked a finger at Burkov. "You, officially, can't afford me anymore." "And by you, I mean all of Hascom." Beecham reached out and slapped Stan on the arm, sending him spinning. "Watch me change the world, Stan." Stan laughed crazily as he spun helplessly in the air. A red light on Lou's screen fought for her attention. "Would one of you tell me?" She looked down. The red light was a threshold warning for the life support reserves. 20%, 15%, 10. "Beecham, no!" She reached out to kill the process he'd initiated, even as the number dropped to 0%. The power. Gone. Their oxygen. Gone. Her screens flared and dimmed, garbled streaks of interference melting coherence from the images and text on them. A high-pitched whine stabbed at her ears as Beecham triumphantly declared, "Let there be light." And there was. Stan was floating, still laughing, in the middle of the CNC when Lou's monitors failed. Bright light was pouring in the window now, and his face was floating upwards. His laughter stopped, was replaced with a gasp. He stared up, paralyzed. Lou slammed the belt release across her chest with trembling hands and pushed off for the porthole above him. "What is it, Stan? What do you—" She reached the handhold beside the porthole. She stared up into the brilliant, white light. "See." True to Beecham's word, Lou Montaigne saw, and her world was forever changed.
Farlost. Music by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Hi, this is John Miro. If you're enjoying Farlost, please consider visiting patreon.com, patreon.com/servingworlds, and lend your support. Be a patron of my fiction. Thank you.